Jake's POV. "Jake, are you injured?" Suma shouted, once I'd reappeared beside her. I was back in the village. Around him were several members of the squad, but not everyone. I saw Nine, Ro, and Lieutenant Datahu. Behind them were other Nume of various sizes, none of which I recognized. Some were wounded, others were dead. Their bluish-green blood shimmered in contrast to their dark blue feathers. Dust and dirt hung thickly in the air, mixed with a smell like burnt hair and wood smoke. "I'm fine. Where are the others?" I asked, the dizziness leaving me as I stood up. "They are helping hold back the enemy while we evacuate the civilians," she said. Another Nume landed beside us, heavily, clearly in a rush. "Lady Suma, Sir Vicky, the enemy are pushing past the defenses. We must leave now." "Where are we evacuating them to?" I asked, summoning my armor, Jericho, and shield, Aegis. "For now, out of the village. Getting them to the forest will make tracking them more difficult. Everyone here knows to go to one of the other strongholds, or how to hide," Nine said. "They should leave the island. We all flew here, they can fly away, back to the mainland," I suggested. "This is our home. We will not leave it, not yet," one of the injured Roshia said. "But you could be safe," I said. An explosion outside vibrated the ground. "They are getting closer. We do not have time for this. Everyone prepare to leave. If you can fly, help those who cannot," the lieutenant said. The room turned to chaos as Nume either flew away or started casting spells to lift others up with magic. "Sentinel, you are coming with me. Follow close." "But Suma, your master will be fine. She is assisting evacuations. We are going to fight. You heard the messenger. They broke through the line, so we must form a new one to buy time." "Yes, ma'am," I said, summoning Mori and following Lieutenant Datahu outside. The smoke was thicker outside the hole we were in. A lot of something, or several somethings, were on fire nearby. From the front, strange and loud sounds echoed. Thunder, cracking, screaming. All of it mixed, slurred and mushed together to form one singular magnanimous noise, like how a waterfall is made up of thousands of drops of water hitting themselves. "Be ready to cast defensive magic, and wide attack range spells. Remember all that training I put you through," Datu said, and created 20 dummies from the ground, wrapping them in vines, tree limbs and roots. After she finished that, she looked up and locked eyes with me. "Sentinel, give me your mana." "How much?" I asked, kneeling down and placing a hand on her. "I will tell you when to stop." I began, pushing my mana into her. At first she seemed fine, but after a few moments she began to wince and I slowed down. "No, keep going." Returning to my original speed, she winced again. "You're in pain." "It is necessary." What felt like a minute later, but probably wasn't, she told me to stop. Despite gasping several times, she claimed she felt amazing. "What now?" I asked, putting my shield between myself and the direction of the noise. "Now we wait." Truthfully, less than 2 minutes probably passed, but when your heartbeat is shacking your eardrums, when your knuckles are turning snow white because you're gripping your sword too hard, and when your breathing is so heavy you could pass out at any second, 2 minutes doesn't feel like 2 minutes. And I spent those stretched out minutes thinking, is Suma still alive? Did she escape? Will I ever see Mum again? I wondered. About that time, an explosion occurred. Not one of fire or lightning, but of flesh. Specifically, of feathers and beaks and claws. Horrified, I watched as Nume poured out of the nearby forest like a living tidal wave. They flew up and down and twisted around each other. It looked like a blue splotchy cloud and sounded like flapping thunder. Lights and sounds came from that living cloud, and it quickly drew closer. Bolts of lightning and balls of fire spewed out. That cloud was at war with itself. The burnt, broken and mangled remains of Nume were ejected from the cloud like rain in every direction, but they always hit the ground in the end. If there was enough of them to make it that far anyway. "By the dragons," Datahu whispered. "What do we do?" I asked. "Let it get closer, and avoid friendly fire as much as possible. Our only job is to buy time, remember? Enough for the evacuation to finish." "How can I tell who is friendly?" "If they are trying to kill you, kill them instead." "Is that supposed to be a joke?" I yelled, frightened. Not at the moment, no. A few dozen Nume poured out of the cloud and flew straight for us. Defensive spells, now, Datu said, and 2 of the dummies she made placed themselves in front of her. I cast a spell I'd come up with during training. Using magnetism, I created a bubble of north polarity around myself, strong enough to stop something, almost anything, at the atomic level. Just a half second later, 3 bolts of lightning and a ball of fire tore them apart. She bolted up into the sky in a blur. As for myself, nothing hit me. Not for a lack of trying, however. One of the Nume had attacked me with lightning, which was what I was hoping for. The lightning was caught in the magnetic field and danced around me like tree branches made of light, before popping into the ground with a crackle. Outside of the magnetic field, I created fireballs, as many as I could. I'd killed before. In the alleyway, I killed a familiar. In the desert, Deja made me kill those mages. But this time, when those fireballs launched at my whim, when they connected with 3 of those Nume, I, Jake, Sentinel, chose to kill them. Their blood was on my hands, knowingly and intentionally. There was no running from it anymore. I repeated that, throwing fireballs over and over again, until they were too close to throw fire at. Then I swung Mori. What happened next was a blur. Later, I would remember every disgusting moment. But at the time, it was just a blur of blood, fire, and screaming. The next clear memory I have is of stabbing Mori into a Nume I'd hit with my shield, after I ran out of magic and my defensive barrier faded away. One solid blow with Aegis's edge probably killed him, but in that blur I still stabbed him. Stepping back from the broken, burnt and gutted bodies, and from the shattered remains of almost all of Datahu's dummies, I looked around, dazed. My ears were ringing so much that I barely even heard Lieutenant Datahu fly down and land beside me. "Are you alright, Sentinel?" she asked. I didn't answer. How was I supposed to? I could barely even breathe or think. "Sentinel, are you alright?" she asked more firmly. I lived? "You are covered in blood. Are you injured?" she asked. Looking down, I saw the blood. I was covered in it. Mori, Aegis, Jericho, and me were dripping bluish green and red blood. I don't know. I looked off to the cloud and saw it had thinned out. Below it laid countless bodies, like a trail of death marking where it had been. Not only had it grown smaller, but it was quickly getting further away. "They're pushing them back?" I asked. "No, that doesn't make sense. They had us outnumbered. We should be..." "Do you hear that?" I asked, as the sound of a violin slowly grew louder. Without warning, the cloud suddenly dispersed. Thousands of Nume flew in a single direction, away from the sound. What Nume remained cheered and shot attacks at their retreating enemies. "Get back!" I shouted at them. "Fly away! Get away!" But they did not listen, or could not hear me. A dozen or more at a time went silent and fell out of the sky right to the ground. Like a wave, they moved slowly closer to us. "Harbinger," Datu said. "The runes! We need to get the runes," I said, and summoned my bag. As soon as it appeared, I opened it and pulled out every rune engraved leather strap I had made, whether they worked or not. I tied one of every kind to her leg and to my wrist, then activated them with a dowel jar. Lieutenant Datahu looked down at the slightly glowing bands, then at me. Her beak moved up and down, but no sound came out. I tried to say something too, but just like her, there was no sound. Her eyes glowed, and I felt something. "Hopefully this means these runes work," the lieutenant's voice inside my mind said. "That would be good, yeah." In the distance, maybe 100 meters away, a wild-looking woman with a violin stepped out of the forest. She walked among the corpses, looking around carefree, until she spotted me. "Kill her! Kill her now!" Datu shouted in my mind. I knew it was time. There was no getting around it, not really. I could pull out a ball bearing, cast railgun, and end this mission then and there. But I had to try it one more time. "Please, can you do to her what you're doing to me now? I want to talk with her. I can get her to stand down. I know I can. That is not the mission, she said. Frick the mission. Just let me try to save her. Please, I know it probably won't work. I know what happens when someone becomes a familiar. But maybe she's like me. Maybe she still has her own mind. I begged, never letting my eyes leave Harbinger. She started walking closer, her violin under her chin, being played the whole time. The lieutenant stayed quiet for a moment, but eventually said, Fine, but I need to pull back. We cannot be sure how these runes work. I will look for our master. Datu spread her wings and flew upwards. As she got further away, she added, You have 3 minutes. If she is not dead or on our side by then, I will kill her myself. At that moment, I felt a third presence enter my mind. Can you hear me? I asked. And Harbinger stopped walking and looked around. Is this you? She asked. But the voice in her mind sounded wrong. When someone speaks to your mind, you feel them. You feel their presence, their soul even. But Harbinger echoed, like she was hollow. Something was missing from her mind, and I could feel it. Yes. What is wrong with you? Well, that's quite the question to ask, isn't it? But really, there is not a single thing wrong. In fact, I'm better than I've ever been, she said, drawing closer, still playing the violin the whole time, even though I couldn't actually hear it. No, you're broken. Please stop this. Let me help you. How come you aren't dying? What? I should be vibrating your brainstem so hard it pulls itself apart. Even at this distance, you should be in agony, but you're fine. Is that death magic? Death magic? No. I had wanted that because I thought it might please my master, but unfortunately I couldn't use it. Master Lucario was so disappointed. I cried for half an hour over that, but it ended up fine, because I learned how to use my magic to fulfill her desires. Your master? Are you under her spell? If not, then you don't need to serve her. You're trapped here, like me, but if we work together, I'm sure we can... Trapped? No, I'm not trapped. Why would I be? Because of the dragon. You haven't seen him? I asked. Harbinger was closer now, maybe only 50 meters away. Dragon? You mean the fire guy? I wondered about him. I saw him like 6 months ago, but that was it. Well, it doesn't matter. There's no reason to fight. If you'll just surrender, this can all end, I pleaded. She was 45 meters away now. This doesn't seem to be working at all, she said, looking down at her violin. How are you doing that? Please surrender. No. Why not? I asked angrily. 40 meters. Because that isn't what my master would want. Frick your master, what do you want? The moment I said that, she put her violin back against her chin and struck one of the chords hard. My feet vibrated, and for a split second the ground to my left, right, and directly in front of me shook so hard it cracked. How dare you! You blaspheme Lucario! I will rip out your tongue and... At the 35 meters mark, Harbinger suddenly stopped. I felt a new mind enter my own. Master, are you okay? I am being attacked! A new woman's voice shouted. Please, summon me. I cannot! It would take too much time. I am finding your direction. Are you the Nume that took over her mind? I asked angrily. What? Who is speaking? Just another human. Don't worry, Master. He will be dead soon. Once again, Harbinger resumed walking. With every step she struck her violin, and with every strike the ground tore itself apart. I felt the other voice, Lucario, leave my mind. Stop this. Your violin clearly isn't working. Clearly. Just talk with me. I'm sure... I was interrupted by a forceful shock to my side. A large rock had slammed into my armor, knocking me to the ground. I cried out in pain for a second, as a few of my ribs broke, but of course no sounds were working around me at the moment. Silently screaming was trippy though. I flowed mana into my armor, and the runes began to heal me. 25 meters now. So, whatever is protecting you is only affecting sound then? They aren't my forte, but I can use other spells, she said. I threw a fireball at her. It connected, and she writhed and shouted for a moment. She even threw her violin to the ground and rolled around until the flames were out. For a second, I thought I'd killed her, but she slowly stood back up. When she turned around, her clothes were burned, but the area of her face I'd hit was already healing. "Stop this," I said. "Is the one attacking Lucario your master? If that's the case, then I'm going to liquefy her guts in front of you." "Please stop this, or I'll have to kill you," I said, one final time. She started running. 10 meters. I cast railgun. The ground beside her exploded. A miss? I thought. A second shot, another miss. Her body slammed into me, knocking me back. She was on top of me, now caught in the rune's area of effect. Her mouth was open. Her face was contorted. Was she screaming? She just body slammed a guy wearing full plate armor. She could be screaming. I hit her, trying to push her away. Each of her blows vibrated me, shook my brains out. Both of us were probably screaming, but there was only quiet and pain. I was bigger, stronger. I pushed her off, summoned Mori, and stabbed. Once, twice, 3 times. She never slowed down. Something hit me from behind, another rock. It made me drop Mori. She hit me in the nose. It broke. Hot blood poured down my mouth. I summoned Aegis and hit her with that too. She still didn't slow. It was like fighting the Wyvern all over again. She wasn't afraid of being hurt. She didn't stop just because she'd been stabbed. I may have been bigger and stronger, but she fought like a trapped animal. Suddenly, the whole world filled with sounds again all at once. "Ah!" she screamed. Or maybe it was both of us. At that point, we were just beating each other senseless on the ground. Neither of us was even trying to use magic anymore. But almost as soon as the sound turned back on, I felt dizzy. "Finally!" she bellowed, and got back to her feet. I tried to stand up but quickly fell over again. My whole world was spinning. Looking at my wrist, I saw that some of the rune engraved straps had come off in the fight. 2 of the 5 were lying almost 10 meters away on the ground. Picking up Mori, she stood over me. I launched a fireball but couldn't see straight and missed entirely, even though she was just a few feet away. She swung, and I put my hand up in front of me. Then it fell to the ground beside me. "Ah!" I screamed, and spurts of my blood flew from where my left hand had once been and into the air. "Ah!" I continued to scream. She raised Mori up again, but I cast a spell. One I told myself I'd never use. Spells are cast by putting magical power, mana, into one's thoughts or intentions. And when she swung that sword down at me again, I could only have one thought, only one intention. I'd been fighting her, fighting to survive, fighting to kill. That was my intention, and the spell cast was death magic. I spoke no words. I didn't need to. The moment the spell was cast, I almost regretted it. She dropped Mori behind her and started screaming. Worse than she did when my fireball had hit her. Worse than anything I'd heard since the alleyway that day, all those years ago. Blood poured from her face where no cuts had been. Her limbs contracted and bent in unnatural ways. She just screamed and screamed until she stopped. Her face frozen in agony and discolored in blood. And I just laid there, frozen, still bleeding from my stump, but unable to put any mana into my armor. Unable to do anything except regret my spell.